Hi, my name is Reuben Levine, and I am a second-generation Holocaust survivor. I am a Holocaust survivor in the sense that my mother was saved by Protestants, righteous Gentiles in Holland, some 65 years ago. My mother, her name is Rachel Slachter, at the age of 3 years old, was given to the Red Cross in Amsterdam by her father and her mother, my grandfather and my grandmother, before they were shipped off to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, where my grandmother did not survive and my grandfather somehow did survive. And when he got out of the camps, he had to somehow, as a war-torn rabbi, find his children. And somehow, some way, by the grace of God, the Red Cross had records. And he found the children, he brought them back into his home, he brought them up, and then ultimately they were able to revive their Judaism, and all of them started beautiful families. But that's not the story. The story I'm about to tell you is not about the atrocities that happened in the camps, but the hope and the very, very unbelievable chance, divine intervention that took place. And here's how it goes. When I was in high school, I happened to go to a school called Yeshiva University of Los Angeles High School, which happened to be associated with the Simon Wiesenthal Center. And they would often have these memorials or dedications for various Holocaust survivors. And these two boys from Belgium dedicated something at this museum in honor of the foster parents that saved them. And I was in high school, and often the high school kids would get invited to these dedications. And I was very taken aback by it because I knew that my mother was saved by righteous Gentiles, and I felt that this was something that we should do for them. So I went home and I asked my mom, "Mom, how come you never took it upon yourself to find these people, thank them?" And she was very, very emotional, and she said she did, she tried. She asked my grandfather, he didn't remember who they were or where they were. She thought that maybe it was deliberate, that he just didn't want to tell them. And she searched for them. She wrote letters to the Dutch government, to the Red Cross, wherever she could attempt to find them, and never did. And by chance in 1986, my uncle, whose name is Sam Slachter, was standing in line in a bank, waiting to see a teller, and a man in front of him was speaking Hebrew with a Dutch accent. And my uncle introduced himself to him, and they started talking, and one thing led to the other, and this gentleman said, "You know, there was this little girl that I used to play with in the home next door to me. I was saved by righteous Gentiles, his Protestant family, and there was a little girl, her name was Dickie Slachter, the same last name as you." My uncle looked at him in shock and said, "Dickie Slachter, that's my sister." He said, "Really? Yeah, I would like to be reunited." And he put them two together. And they got together, and he began to start opening my mother's mind up to parts of her childhood that she never knew. And it just so happened that he stayed in touch with his family. And as a result of this happen chance meeting, he was reunited. She was reunited with her foster mother on Mother's Day in 1986, 50 years later. It was very, very emotional as my mother was telling over how her foster brothers and sisters remembered her and remembered how she would hide when the Nazis would come. But other things were revealed to her. It happened to be that her sister, who was blonde, didn't look much like her, was actually saved by another family that my mother was originally with. And because the two sisters didn't look alike, they felt that they had to split them up, otherwise the authorities would grow suspicious. So my aunt stayed with the original family, the Kalters family, and my mother went to a different family, the Van der Veer family. But somehow, some way, through this happen chance meeting, she learned that these two Gentile families made it their business to bring these two girls together, to play together. And what that says to me, specifically in days like this where we're dealing with this pandemic, and it's a non-denominational pandemic, that even the Holocaust, in many ways, was also a non-denominational problem, that people stuck their necks out to save other people no matter what. And that's an important message today. But the story doesn't end there. My aunt, once she found out my mother was reunited with her family, wanted to meet the family that she was originally with, that she stayed with. And through my mother's family, my aunt found out where this Mrs. Coulter's, the old age home that she was living in at the time, and they went to Holland to meet Mrs. Coulter's. And they walked into this old age home, and they walked into this little room, and there sat Mrs. Coulter's, a frail woman speaking gibberish. She had Alzheimer's. She didn't know what was going on in her surroundings. And in walked these two strange women, and they said to her, "Frau Coulter's, dat is Dickie Slachter." And she pops up out of her trance, and she looks at them and says, "Oh, Dickie and Chaltia, they're out in the park playing." And my mother and her sister were floored. And she says, "Yeah, they're out in the park playing." And they said, "No, this is us." And she says, "No, they're in the park playing." And then she went back to the gibberish that she was speaking. And all around the walls were these photos that this Mrs. Coulter's held on to. And there was this one big photo of Mr. Coulter's in all his grandeur. And in that photo sat a small little black and white photo that I share with you of my mother and my aunt at the age of 3 and 4 years old, and some other little child that this woman held on to for 50 plus years. It stayed with her even then. And the reason why I tell this story today is that because of the Holocaust Memorial Day, I thought it was important to bring forth a story that's not only gruesome, but it's also a story of hope. It's a story of people that put their necks out for other people. And when we look around today in this great pandemic, I see so many heroes, and it's non-denominational. I see Jews, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, people of every walk in life taking the time, risking of themselves to take care of other people. And I hope that this story that I share with you will give you hope. It certainly has given me hope. I'm also challenged. I'm dealing with challenges with business. We're all concerned. We don't know what the future will bring. But I felt it was important to share with you this story on Holocaust Remembrance Day that sits right smack in the middle of this COVID crisis, in the hope that everybody can go ahead and think of those times and think of those stories and think of those special events that weren't so happy, were disappointing, were scary initially, and ultimately had a happy ending. So on this day, I dedicate this candle that I lit not only for my grandmother, Rebecca Slachter, who perished in the war, but also I light this candle for the righteous Gentiles who saved my mother and saved my aunt and gave us an opportunity to have a next generation. But I also light this candle in honor of all of those internationally who stuck their necks out for other people, for humankind. We will get over this. We will prevail. And hopefully we could have stories like these that we can look back on and have fond memories. Thank you.